It works every time, and it works whether you know it or not. That's great news. Every single time you do something, it matters. Every time you take action or don't, it matters. And I can prove it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's get started. When is the last time that you had something in your hands that worked every single time? Every single time. Tonight I want to share with you something that took me years to learn. And I want to prove to you that there are 7 decisions that you can make, 7 principles that you can harness, that if you choose to harness them, will give you the life you choose. Because everything you do matters. Every single time you do something, it matters. Every single time. Now, before we get started, we're going to lay out some rules. First rule is I don't do a show, I don't do a performance, I don't really do a speech. Because it just puts so much pressure on everybody. You have to act interested, and I have to be interesting. And it's easier to me just to have a conversation. And so that's what we're going to do. We'll imagine we're in a big living room, and we're all sitting around together, and we're having a conversation, and I'll go first. All right? So you need to know, number one, that I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to be a speaker. And I wanted, if I was going to be able to speak, I wanted to say good things to people, because it was obvious to me that as kids, we listen to what people say. And to kids, we say the same thing. You and I team up on each other's kids. You tell my kids, I tell you, you can be anything you want to be. You can do whatever you want. You live in the United States of America, and in this country, it doesn't matter where you start. That's what we tell kids. But somewhere around 22 or 45 or 53, we start telling each other, you know, don't get your hopes up. And you need to be a little more realistic. And I remember my dad saying things like when Abraham Lincoln was your age, Abraham Lincoln had a job. And when Abraham Lincoln was your age, Abraham Lincoln walked 12 miles through the snow to get to school. And I didn't say it out loud, but I remember thinking, when Abraham Lincoln was your age, he was president. All right? So I knew I wanted to be a speaker, but I just didn't know how to do it. Granted, I didn't know what I was going to speak about. You know, I had no clue what I was really going to talk about. But, well, you be careful what you ask for, because, you know, you want to be a speaker, ain't got something to speak about. Life will turn and give you something to speak about. Because that was about the time that my parents died. Both my parents. My mom died of cancer. My dad was killed in a car accident. And I was almost 20 years old. And as you can imagine, this is a horrible time in my life. And it's okay. I mean, I see everybody. It's pretty funny up until now. But just, I mean, it's okay. You know, it's been a long time, and it's okay. I just wanted to tell you about this time because people ask, where did these 7 decisions come from? And it really, they were a product of the worst time in my life. Because when my parents died, I didn't have a lot of extended family. I didn't have a lot of people to lean on, to ask for. And let me tell you something about me. I have always had the ability to take a bad situation and make it infinitely worse. That's just me. You know, and I made some bad choices, you know, just everyday garden variety bad choices. But I made a lot of them, and they kind of strung together and sent my life spiraling down. And I ended up literally homeless before that was even a word. You know what I'm saying? This is like 25 years ago. Nobody was talking about homeless people, but I, you know, was spending the nights occasionally under a pier. And my big question, of course, is life just a lottery ticket? Because it seemed like I had no control at all over anything, and that was my big concern. Is life just a lottery ticket, or is there something we can do? Or does this guy just get happiness and a family, and this guy just ends up under a pier? Because I thought, you know, if life is a lottery ticket and this is my ticket, I might just quit. So I decided to read. I didn't have much else to do. I was doing odd jobs. I was cleaning fish. I was washing boats. But I read, library cards are free, and I ended up reading a ton of books. I read between 200 and 300 biographies over the next couple of years of these happy, successful, financially secure, influential, great people. Okay, I was reading biographies of great people, which now that I say that, it makes me think, do they do biographies of any other kind of people? It's not a loser section at your local bookstore, is there? But I was trying to find out, what is it about them? Why were they this way? How did they turn out like this? Is it something they did? Or were they born that way? If it was something they did, how long did it take them to do it? And I found 7 things. I found 7 common denominators in their lives. It was curious to me because all 7 were very, very focused in the lives, in some way being used. And so those were the 7 things that I ended up putting in my life at that point to start yanking myself out of the circumstances. And so these are the 7 decisions that I want to go over with you tonight. And before we do that, let me just tell you that, because I just kind of sense everybody going, wow, his parents died, and a peer, and so I just want to, before we even go on, tell you that we're fine now. We are. I've got a wife and 2 little boys, and we live indoors and everything, and we're fine. I've got 2 great little boys, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I'm trying to be a good dad. I think I am being a good dad. I'm not being as much like my dad as my dad was, even though I heard myself say to my 5-year-old the other night, I heard myself say, because I said so. Okay? And I thought, oh my God, I am my dad. But what I've done with my little boys, I thought I didn't want to be my dad, so I wrote down all the most famous parental sayings, everything that's really famous, that parents say over and over again, and I wrote them down and I memorized them so that I could just say them to my children. And every day I get Austin and Adam in front of me and I say all 50 of them, then let them go to their room and choose the one they think's most appropriate for the time. Let me try this. I think I can do this for you. There's all 50 of the most famous parental sayings. Let me do this in like 60 seconds. You better change your tune pretty quick or you're out of here. I mean it. Is that understood? Don't shake your head at me. I can't hear your head rattle. Don't mumble. You act as if the world owes you living. You got a chip on your shoulder. You're not going anywhere looking like that. You're crazy if you think you are. If you think you are, just try me. I don't know what's wrong with you. I never saw a kid like you. Other kids don't pull stuff like that. I wasn't like that. What kind of example do you think you are for your brothers and sisters? Sit up straight. Don't slouch. Would you like a spanking? If you'd like a spanking, just tell me now. We'll get this thing over with. You're cruising for a bruising. I'm your father. As long as you live in my house, you'll do as I say do. You think the rules don't apply to you? I'm here to tell you that they do. Are you blind? Watch what you're doing. You walk around here like you're in a daze. Something better change and change fast. You're driving your mother to an early grave. This is a family vacation. You're going to have fun whether you like it or not. Take some responsibility. Pull your own weight. Don't expect other people to pick up after you, and don't ask me for money. What do you think I'm made out of money? Think of a tree that grows money? You better wake up, and I don't mean maybe. Do you act like this when you're away from us? We've given you everything we possibly could. Food on the table, a roof over your head. Things you never had when we were your age. You treat us like we don't exist. That's no excuse. If he jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff too? You're grounded. I'm not going to put up with this for another minute. You're crazy if you think I am. If you think I am, just try me. Don't look at me that way. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Don't make me say this again. I think I heard every one of those things growing up. These 7 decisions that we're going to go over tonight, they work every time. And I mentioned that to begin. And I wanted to reiterate this to you because I saw how nicely you reacted. I said, these things work every time. And you were like, let me ramp it up for you. They work whether you know them or not. They're already affecting your life. Whether you're aware of these 7 decisions or not, they're already affecting your life because they're principles. These are principles, and principles work every time. It's like the principle of gravity. It works every time, and it works whether you know it or not. The principle of gravity was working long before the apple ever fell on Newton's head. But once it did, and once he understood it, we as a society were free to harness that principle to create airline flight. Well, the principles of personal success, of parenting, of citizenship, the principles of financial security, these principles of personal success are exactly the same. They're floating around out there. So why shouldn't we learn them
and harness them to create the future of our choosing. You know, the beauty of these 7 things is in their simplicity. They're simple, not necessarily easy. It's just that for a long time we haven't understood the power that they have when they're placed in a group and used together. Oh, can I take my jacket off to do this? My dad always told me the most important part of meeting anybody is the first impression. And now that you know I have a jacket, I'm going to take it off. The first impression part of this event is officially over. Can I give this to somebody? There you go. Thank you very much. So let's start with number 1. Decision number 1 is the buck stops here. I am responsible for my future. I'm responsible for my past. The buck stops here. You want to hear a great fight? Just turn on talk radio. This is the great fight that plays on our nation's airways every single day. You know, you have one side saying, these people need to accept responsibility. And until these people accept responsibility, and you got another side going, but it's not their fault. They're not to blame. Don't you understand? It's not their, and until these people, it's a great fight. But both sides are wrong. See, what do we blame? What is it that people blame? We blame our parents, we blame the weather, we blame the economy, we blame the president, we blame our spouse. It's amazing the things that we blame. But somehow, if we can look in the mirror and say, you know, I've had some crazy things happen in my life, and I couldn't control any of them. But I made choices in response to those things that have led me right down the path into this place that I don't like. If we can understand that we can make choices that'll put us in a place we don't like, that's great news. That's wonderful news. Because if we understand we can make choices that put us in a place we don't like, then doesn't it stand to reason that we could make choices that'll put us in a place we do like? And so the game becomes make better choices. See, what the people on talk radio, most of them, don't seem to understand is that responsibility is not about blame anyway. It's about hope and control. I mean, when you spread the idea of responsibility like that, when you really understand that responsibility, taking responsibility for your past and your future is about hope and control, it's easier to swallow. And it's a wonderful thing to accept, because who among us doesn't wish for hope for a better future and a way to control that future? And when you understand that the choices that you make lead the way, you understand what the next 6 decisions are about. Because what we're about is making great choices, and the other 6 are about how to make them. The second decision is I will seek wisdom. A wonderful decision. And it's something that people overlook, because most people think of it in terms of education. They think this is like a continuing education or even traditional education. But seeking wisdom really has nothing to do with education. Even though you can seek wisdom in the books that you read and the tapes that you listen to or the CDs or the shows that you watch, you can seek wisdom that way. But there are 2 specific ways that I really believe that if people can understand and people can gather into their lives, their financial lives, their emotional lives, their physical lives, everything can prosper with this way of seeking wisdom. One is actually tapes and books on audio or CDs on how to speak another language. You know, there are all kinds of statistics that show that people who speak 2 languages make more money than people who speak 1. You know, there are all kinds of studies to show that the people who are in a process of learning are happier. And so all I'm saying is, and it's very quick and very easy, and this is nothing you don't expect, but I'm urging you to listen to tape programs. Listen to books on tape. And, you know, people tell me all the time, and I know why you don't. I know why you don't. Because people tell me, they say, well, you know, do you know what my life is like? Do you have any idea what my life is like? Do you know I have a job? My wife has a job. I have kids. I'm the president of the social club. That's all I can do to get to bed at night. And you're telling me you want me to read books and to listen to tape? Listen, see, people think that they have to sit down at the table and clear the house and clear their calendar and sit down at the table and have a pen and paper and watch that little CD go round and round while they take notes. They think they got to pay attention like that, but you don't have to pay attention like that. All you have to do is just play it as background. You'll get it. Play it while you're cooking or while you're mowing the grass or while you're driving the kids. Play it while you're in the shower. Play it while you're sleeping. You'll get it. See, here's the point. If something's going to be in there, why not have it be something you choose? Why not have it be something that can change your family's future? Here's the second part of seeking wisdom. The second part of seeking wisdom is the people with whom we surround ourselves. You know, there's not a parent in here who isn't desperately concerned with the kids their kids hang out with. Why? Because you know your kids are going to turn out just like them. But at what age does that cease to be a factor in our lives? You know, is it 22? Is it 35 or 45? And the answer, of course, is it's always a factor in our lives. See, it's really critical to choose your friends with care, to choose the people you're around carefully. So I'll ask questions, and one of the questions I ask, I'll say, tell me the three best attributes of a true friend. What is a true friend to you? Describe a true friend in 3 ways. And over again, more than 80% of the time, I get this answer. A true friend is someone who accepts me as I am. You guys, that is such dangerous garbage to believe. A true friend is someone who accepts me as I am. The kid who works the drive-thru at your local fast food restaurant accepts you as you are because he doesn't care anything about you. A true friend is someone who holds you to a higher standard, who expects you to do what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. A true friend is someone who makes you better by their presence. You want to play good tennis? Play somebody better than you, and your game rises to their level. You know, there are a myriad people who are smarter and wiser than us in many different ways. And I have learned something that has allowed me to make, frankly, very good decisions. And you know how I do it? I don't make them myself. I have a board of directors that helps me make my decisions. See, you want me to make you feel bad? And I know you're going, oh yes, Andy, that's why we showed up, make us feel bad. No, you want to feel bad. If you're in a bad place, let me tell you the truth. You're in a bad place financially, physically, emotionally, you're in a bad place. You are where you are because of your best thinking. Is that kind of scary? I mean, you know, my best thinking got me here. You know, I'm broke, I'm divorced, I'm unhappy, my children won't talk to me, and my best thinking got me. I mean, really, you think about it. I mean, nobody ever sets out to fail. Nobody ever says, I'm going to make every bad decision I can possibly make. I mean, hopefully we're sitting around going, you know, I'm going to think this out. I'm going to do the right thing. And yet still we end up in a horrible place. How does this happen? It's our best thinking that got us there. But see, here's the part a lot of people miss, is that if our best thinking got us into a place we don't like, the same level of thinking is not likely to get us out. Now, we can spend years learning and reading, or we can spend just a short amount of time adding wisdom to our own, getting the best thinking of others. And this is where a board of directors comes in. I know what people think. Sometimes they think, well, okay, Andy, sure, you can have a board of directors. You know, people who write books, I suppose, could have board, because board of directors are expensive. And I know you're thinking, well, maybe you can afford one. And no, you're missing what I'm saying here. I have a personal board of directors, very wise people. And they don't actually know that they're on my board of directors. I mean, they're there, but I don't let them know that they're making decisions for me. Because I feel like, some of them, they go off my board of directors, and I'll pull somebody else in. But it's easy to create a personal board of directors, because what you can do is find people who are smarter than you and better than you and have more fruit on the tree in every part of your life than you do. You know, Polly and I have a couple of couples on our board of directors who have longer lasting marriages than us. My wife and I have been married 17 15 years, and we have a couple on our board of directors that have been married 30 years, and another couple have been married 35 years. And, I look at them and I say, how do they do what they've done? They remain happy, they remain loyal, and so we want them on our board of directors. This is seeking wisdom, creating friends, and having friends with people who are better than you in every way so that you will rise to their level. Now, a lot of people have asked me, of these 7 decisions, which of the 7 is the most important? Is there one that is more important than the other? And very definitely there is. It's number 3. Number 3 is by far the most important decision. Without number 3, the rest of them don't even work. And that's why we're going to save number 3 to the last. Okay? And we're going to go right on to number 4. Number 4, decision number 4 is I have a decided heart. More people fail because of an undecided heart than for any other reason. You know what an undecided heart is, don't you? You have friends who make decisions this way. They'll have a decision they're going to make, and they'll think about, should I make this decision now or should I make it later? And then you'll tell them what you thought, and then they'll talk to other friends about what they think, and then they'll get closer to the decision and decide whether they should put a decision off or they make it now, and then they talk to other friends about what they think about what they should do, and then they finally make the decision. Then they talk to friends about whether they should have made it or whether they should have put it off more. Then they take the decision back, and then they talk to friends about whether they should have took it back or stuck with it in the first place. And life becomes this ongoing state of analysis. And it is dramatically important to understand the purpose of analysis. The purpose of analysis is to come to a conclusion. It's not to continue to analyze. The purpose of analysis is to get to it. See, successful people make their decisions quickly and they change their minds slowly. Unsuccessful people make their decisions slowly and they change their mind quickly. One way that we can make decisions is to understand a level of commitment beyond that which ordinary people commit to. See, when you're looking at making right decisions, this is a scary thing for a lot of people. And a lot of people end up as leaders. And there's tons of books about leadership and tons of courses you can take on leadership. But leadership pretty much boils down to somebody who's willing to state an opinion and stick to it. I don't believe that we're made with the ability to make right decisions all the time. I don't really think that we can. Unless somehow you've been born with the ability to tell the future, which I don't think that's possible either, and I won't believe it until I see a headline that says psychic wins lottery. Then maybe I'll believe it. But unless you can tell the future, you couldn't possibly gather enough facts to make right decisions all the time. I don't believe we're made with the ability to make right decisions all the time, but we are made with the ability to make a decision and then go about the business of making it right. There was a man in 1519 who set sail on the final leg of a voyage that was to take him from the shores of Cuba to the Yucatan Peninsula. He had in his employ 500 soldiers, 100 sailors, 16 horses on 11 ships. And they were going to take the world's richest treasure. It was a treasure of gold and silver and artifacts, jewels, that had been held by the same army for 600 years. Everybody knew about this treasure because army after army had tried to take it. Conqueror after conqueror had appeared with the forces and with the will to take this treasure, but nobody had been able to do it. This guy, his name was Hernando Cortez, he was a conqueror, which, to our way of thinking, this is a horrible thing. But back then, it was like a job description. You could be a doctor, you could be a baker, you could be a conqueror. There were courses in it. And little kids would grow up wanting to be. And so anyway, Cortez was a conqueror. But he was a little bit different in his approach because he knew that time after time, people had gathered armies and nobody. So he had to gather an army whose level of commitment was beyond that which ordinary people consider commitment. So rather than just sign them up, he talked to them beforehand. He talked to them about what the treasure was like and what their lives would be like when they took the treasure, and what their families and their generations of lives would be like when they took the treasure, and how they were going to take the treasure and why they were different, and what would be like that moment that they put their hands on. And so he laid a vision out for these people, for these men. And then they set sail. Well, halfway through the voyage, he realized he had a problem, because a lot of these people who were so certain turned into whiners. You know, I mean, halfway across, Mr. Cortez, we're not sure we should be on this ship at this time. It was amazing. Cortez was like, and they got there. When they got there, they didn't just walk in and fight like conquerors had done in the past. He waited there on the beach. He gathered everybody on the beach, and he made them listen to talks about what the treasure was going to be like. And he brought somebody up to talk about what their children would grow up like, and how the children would grow up in favor and in wealth because of what they had done. He laid that vision out for them. And then finally, the day came that they were going to march in and take the treasure, and they gathered around. And as they gathered around, they grew quiet. And they were ready for the speech. They knew that this would probably be the speech where Cortez says, you go here, we'll go here. If the arrows start flying, meet me at this coconut stump. We're out of here. But what he said was 3 words that changed everything. As they quieted down, he leaned in and he said, "Burn the boats." And they said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Burn the boats, torch the boats." And they burned their own boats at Cortez's direction. He said, "If we're going home in their boats." Well, an amazing thing happened. They fought well. It was the first time it had ever been done. They took the treasure. They took it. First time in 600 years, and they took the treasure. Why? They had no choice. Take it or die. I mean, that was basically the choice. Take it or die. And I'm sure they considered that. Take it, die. I guess we'll take it. And they did. Boy, they took the treasure. And see, here's the thing. The question for us is, what is it in our lives that is still floating the excuses in our minds, that's keeping us from getting what we say we want? What are the boats in our hearts and in our minds that we need to burn? Now, I know why a lot of people are scared to burn boats. And frankly, a lot of it has to do with personal feeling. A lot of people are scared to burn their boats because they know they'll get criticized if they do. How many of you have been criticized for something you believe or something you've done or something different? Raise your hand if you have experienced criticism. Does it hurt? Does this hurt? I mean, this is horrible, isn't it? Well, let me tell you something. You want to find out tonight, you want to find out right now how to do away with criticism and do away with that awful feeling about being criticized. You want to find out right now how to deal with that once and for all? You want to know? I would too. Holy cow. Because I hate it. I mean, it tears me up. I mean, I'll spend my time writing a book or coming up with something to say, and somebody, I don't like that, and I don't believe that, and I feel horrible. And I finally came to a conclusion, though. Do you know that the Catholic Church is now going through the process of declaring Mother Teresa a saint? Did you know that? Do you know how they do it? This is very interesting. To declare Mother Teresa a saint, they gather a tribunal of people to listen to testimony from a gallery of people who one at a time, over days and weeks, will come up and they will tell why Mother Teresa should be a saint. And these people, I mean, one after another, as long as they want, they stand, oh, she should be a saint. I mean, if anybody should be a saint, it should be Mother Teresa. Do you know what she has done? We saw her do this. We heard her say this. Oh, she should be a saint. And that's what, I mean, they line up and they let them get through. Then they line up another group of people who day after day, month after month, they line up and they tell this tribunal why she should not be a saint. And then they got people and they stand up, they go, not her. We heard Mother Teresa cuss one time. And they, whatever it is. I guess my point is this. You guys, if they're bad-mouthing Mother Teresa, you and me hadn't got a chance anyway. So we might as well ignore it. Let's move on. Not to number 3, which is the most important of the 7, but to number 5. Number 5 is curious to me. Number 5 is curious, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because number 5 is the one I take the most flack from about the media. The principle is this: today I will choose to be happy. That's the principle. And you and I know that happiness and success is not money. I mean, you and I know that, right? Yet the media seems to equate money and success. And so every time I do an interview or with a newspaper or on the radio, what they say is, well, I understand these other 7. But how in the world in today's economy could choosing to be happy affect anybody's financial future? My obvious answer was, well, think about it. If you're trying to get a job or you're hiring somebody and you got 2 people in front of you, they look the same, they're the same age, the same gender, the same education. One of them's griping and complaining, the other one's smiling and happy. Who are you going to hire? I mean, and that was obvious because that problem with the questions I was asked caused me to find out something about this 5th decision. Today I will choose to be happy. That absolutely blew my mind. And that is, of all 7 decisions, if there is one that has more to do with finances than any other, it's this one. It's choosing to be happy. Now understand, I don't really think that somebody can just say, okay, I choose to be happy, and snap their fingers and then they're happy. It's a little more complicated than that. I do believe that somebody can choose to be grateful and that happiness is a product of gratefulness. I do believe that somebody can choose to be grateful and they can sit down at a table with a pen and a pad and write down 100 things that they have to be grateful for, and 10 minutes later I do believe they can get up and feel differently. Because we do have many things to be grateful for. And if you don't think so, just think in terms of the millions of people who will go to bed tonight without a bed, without sheets. They'll go to bed without enough food to eat. They'll go to bed without a roof over their head. Just think of the things we have to be grateful for. The friends we have, the country we have to live in. See, a grateful heart is incredibly important to gather to keep you out of the depths of feeling sorry for yourself. The seeds of depression cannot take root in a grateful heart. And I know you're going, oh, okay, what about the finances? Well, let's put it this way. Do you have friends that you don't dare ask them how they're doing? You know what I'm talking about? These people, you don't dare say, how you doing? Because you know they're going to answer you and it's going to take 10 minutes. How you doing? Well, you wouldn't believe it. Oh, it's just one thing after another. You know what happened to us last year? And of course, this year's been no different. Every time we think that it's fixing to get better, it's like the dump truck backs up in our yard and just dumps it all over us again. Our lives are just getting worse and worse. You know what? This will kill you. This will just blow your mind. It was incredible when I understood that these people, these moany, whiny, complainy, groany people who think that their lives are getting worse and worse, get this. They really are getting worse and worse. But wait a minute, I'm not saying that they're getting worse and worse in kind of a motivational speaker kind of way. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying your attitude determines your altitude. I'm not saying what you think is what you are. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm telling you is that in measurable ways, physically, financially, emotionally, in measurable ways, their lives really are getting worse and worse. And here's why. Our opportunities, our encouragement, our information and knowledge, they come from people that are placed in our lives. And these whiny, moany, groany people are getting a lot less opportunities and information and encouragement than everybody else. Why? Because nobody wants to be around them. I mean, it's very simple. You think about it. I mean, how do you deal with them? Yeah, I mean, how do you deal? Oh, yeah, I can't. I mean, what do you say? Oh, great, let's spend the week together. You know? I mean, no, you don't say that. I mean, holy cow. I mean, what do you say? You say, hey, we'll be thinking about you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're Baptist, you put them on the prayer list, okay? But are you going to hang out with them? No, you're not going to hang out with them. Why? Because they're a drag. Holy cow. I mean, could I be with a more depressing person? I mean, you don't want to hang around with them. And you don't. And neither does anybody else. And so, if it is true that our opportunities and our encouragement and our knowledge and information come from people, they are getting a lot less knowledge and opportunities and encouragement than anybody else, and their lives really are getting worse and worse. The opposite is true too. There are people whose lives are getting better and better. You know, these people, you say, how you doing? They say, it's incredible. If my life could be better, there'd have to be two of me. And after you slap them, you know, you realize, you know, there really are people like this. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't you know people like that, that their life seems to be on a roll? That everything, it's just like everything they touch works. And they're happy and they're happier and their family, I mean, it's just the life seems to be working for them. Well, it is. And the reason is very simple. If our opportunities and our encouragement and our knowledge and information come from people, these people have a lot more people around them than everybody else because they have become people that everybody wants to be around. I mean, I'm being real honest with you. I realized that when my parents died, that I went through a long period of my life that I didn't have anybody in my life to say that had the guts or that I would allow to say, hey, you don't talk like that. Hey, that ain't how you eat when you're out with people. You know, I didn't have anybody to say, look, this is how you need to dress. I realized in my early 30s, I need to be a little harder on myself than the rest of you guys to catch up. And one of the things that I started asking myself every day is, Andy, what is it about you that other people would change if they could? What is it about you, Andy, that other people would change if they could? And sometimes, frankly, I would get answers that I'd think, well, I don't want to change that. But then I'd remember that wasn't the question. The question is, what would other people change if they could? Because I knew it was really important to become a person that other people wanted to be around. That includes at home. To have the kind of home life we want to have, you know, we need to be the kind of people that other people want to be around. And some people, you know, sometimes people say, well, you know, I just have a hard time at home because I let my hair down and I just, you know, I can't control my temper. I mean, if something's bugging me, I just got to say it. I cannot control that. Yes, you can. You can. I mean, you know you can. You may not think you can, but inside you know you can. I mean, how many times have you been there like this and the phone rings and you go, hi there. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can control it. You control it for people who don't mean as much as your family. You know, we have a Dalmatian. Lucy the Dalmatian. And Lucy is a great dog, I guess. She was our dog daughter for a long time until we had little boys. She was a part of the family, certainly a very important part of my wife's family.
because I would notice how my wife would treat Lucy, and it would sometimes just kind of crawl all over me, frankly. And I told her one day, I said, sometimes I think you treat that dog better than you treat me. And she said, mm-hmm. And it occurred to me, though, it really occurred, because I would kind of watch Lucy, and I'd think, what's up with you, dog? But I realized, I would watch her, and I realized that a lot of times, if Polly came in the room, I'd be on the phone, and I'd, hey, or if I'm on the phone and she came in the room, I go, or if I was doing something with somebody else, we'd hire, maybe not, and that isn't how Lucy treated Polly. I mean, man, every time Polly comes into the room, Lucy stands up, Hey, that's what she acts like. Like she wasn't just in here 5 minutes ago. Hey, it's that woman. Oh, I love you. Hey, and she stands up and she goes to Polly. Ooh, kiss, kiss, kiss. I mean, and it occurred to me that maybe if I treat my wife as good as the dog treats my wife, then maybe my wife would treat me as good as she treats the dog. I would like to go immediately to number 3, because number 3 is going to kill you. It's going to set everything in motion for you. But we can't go to number 3 until the end. So, let's go to number 6. Number 6. Oh, I love number 6. How many of you have heard of anger management? How many of you have known someone who went to anger management? How many of you have ever been personally sentenced by a judge? No, I'm just kidding. And my point is, anger management is a huge, huge thing in our world today. And it's a crock. I'm telling you, listen to me. Anger management, you're kidding me. I mean, think about this. You got a person here who basically decides this. I have this deep-seated rage and resentment that has been boiling in my life for years. And now it's bubbling out of control into public areas, and I'm doing things that are embarrassing my family, and possible jail time might be involved. So before it gets too bad, I think I'll just go to a course and learn how to keep my anger and resentment inside me for the rest of my life and just manage it. How stupid is that? Why do you want to manage something like that? Somebody needs to be talking about anger resolution. How do you get rid of it? This is a problem we all deal with. Yeah, I mean, anger, this is a problem we all deal with. I mean, how many times have you been, you're almost asleep. You're almost asleep. Yeah, everybody else is asleep, and you're just about, and all of a sudden your eyes pop open, and you think about that guy and what he said today, and what you said, and what you should have said, and if you had him in front of you right now, what you'd say, and maybe tomorrow he'll walk, and you run this little theater of the mind. This little theater. How many times, guys especially do this. How many times, guys, you've been driving down the highway and your wife says, "What's wrong?" And you realized you were thinking about that guy and what he said and what you would have said. And if you're a guy, you think about punching him. Ladies, do you know that we still we're 40 and 50 years old and we still think about punching somebody out by the monkey bars. It is amazing. And here's the crazy thing. What I have found is that 99.9% of the time, these people that we're so irritated, these people who have offended us so deeply, are sleeping and living their lives without any clue that we're bent out of shape. And so whose life is it ruining? It's our life. It's our life that's being consumed. And the answer is the 6th decision. I will greet each day with a forgiving spirit. See, I used to think that forgiveness
was like a knighthood. I used to think that forgiveness was something that I would bestow upon some lucky person who come dragging their sorry butt into my presence, begging and pleading and crying with me for some of my valuable forgiveness, that maybe I would forgive them and let them. You know what I'm saying? I used to think of it like that. But my problem was when I really started researching forgiveness, and I couldn't find any book or any expert to tell me that for one person to forgive another person, that that other person had to ask for it. I couldn't find any book or any expert to tell me that for one person to forgive another person, that that other person had to deserve it. I couldn't find any book or any expert that would tell me that for one person to forgive another person, that person had to even be aware they were being forgiven. Everything I read, everything I knew, had begun to tell me that the deal was just to forgive. That forgiveness had a lot more to do with us than it did with them. Holy cow, it's not even mandatory that they be aware of the process. See, forgiveness is a gift that means more to the giver than it does to the person being forgiven. And sometimes, you know, when I'm talking about this, I have people say, oh, what? So they're just going to get away with it? I have people say, oh, so forgive and forget? No, I didn't say that at all. See, forgiveness is about us. Trust is about them. Forgiveness is about the past. Trust is about the future. Do we forgive somebody who steals from us? Yes, we do. Do we continue to do business with them? No, we don't. See, forgiveness is a decision, not an emotion. If we tackle this thing with an emotion, our emotions drag us the other way. But if you'll notice, emotions follow decisions. And so when we decide to forgive, our emotions follow along in that manner. Forgiveness is such a huge key. And let me tell you this. There is one person in here that most of us need to forgive. And that's you, yourself. We have piled so much on our own shoulders. You know, there are so many things that we have intended to do that we didn't do. So many promises we made we didn't keep. So many goals we set that we didn't hit. And they've just piled up on us to such an incredible degree that it's just, the weight is just crushing. And the point, I guess, is, you know, I'm not mad at you. So why are you mad at you? Do me a favor. Abraham Lincoln lived a life of forgiveness. And I would like to read to you a scroll given by Lincoln. And if you will, just close your eyes, just right where you are. Just close your eyes. Just listen to the sound of my voice. And internalize these words as I read to you what Lincoln wrote. The sixth decision for success. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. For too long, every ounce of forgiveness I owned was locked away, hidden from view, waiting for me to bestow its precious presence upon some worthy person. Alas, I found most people to be singularly unworthy of my valuable forgiveness, and since they never asked for any, I kept it all for myself. Now the forgiveness that I hoarded has sprouted inside my heart like a crippled seed yielding bitter fruit. No more. At this moment, my life has taken on new hope and assurance. I now understand that forgiveness has value only when it's given away. By the simple act of granting forgiveness, I release the demons of the past, about which I can do nothing anyway, and I create in myself a new heart, a new beginning. By the act of forgiving, I am no longer consumed by unproductive thoughts. I give up my bitterness. I am content in my soul and effective again with my fellow man. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. I know the difference between right and wrong. I know what is best for the future of my family, and neither misguided opinion nor unjust criticism will alter my course. Those who are critical of my goals and dreams simply do not understand the higher purpose to which I have been called. For many years, my greatest enemy has been myself. Every mistake, every miscalculation, every stumble I made has been replayed again and again and again in my mind. I realize today it is impossible to fight an enemy living in my head. By forgiving myself, I erase the doubts, fears, and frustration that have kept my past in the present. From this day forward, my history will cease to control my destiny. I have forgiven myself. My life has just begun. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. Look up. Take a deep breath. Forgiveness could possibly be the biggest one of the 7. Because truly, without this one, it's hard to gather that happy one, that grateful one. It's hard to gather number 3 that we're going to get to in just a few minutes. It's hard not to be frozen when we're living lives of unforgiveness. So remember, number 6, I will greet each day with a forgiving spirit. Number 7, you have never heard. I can't wait, because you've heard all the rest of them. Are you ready? Number 7, I will persist without exception. I know what you're thinking. You're going, I've heard that. No, you haven't. What you have heard is, I will persist. It's that without exception part that everybody leaves off. See, here's a beautiful thing about persisting without exception. When you persist without exception, miracles occur. You're somehow allowed to find a way where there is no way. This is what happens. See, anytime you make a statement that you're going after something big, that you're going to do something unusual, you're going to do something great, anytime you do that, you got to know this: it's going to be hard. If the reward is big, it's going to be hard, because there is only a reward for something that's tough to do. You know, I mean, if it was easy to do, everybody would be doing it and there would be no reward. Anytime you go after something big, there will be a time that it will be obvious to everybody that it's over. It can't be done. It'll be obvious to everybody. It may even be obvious to you that it's over. You know, the game's over. And see, here's the thing. If you get to that point and you have persisted, then it's okay to quit. Because you persisted. You hung in there, and I mean, you can quit with a clear conscience, and you can quit with encouragement from people around you, because they'll be fine for you to quit. I mean, oh, honey, you gave it your best shot. You tried. Lord knows you tried. We watched you. Oh, she's killing herself. It's time to quit, honey. You can quit. I mean, people will encourage you to quit if you've persisted. But see, if you persist without exception, there you have to find a way where there is no way. And people say, well, what is that? It's an idea. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's an idea. Anytime you hit the wall, anytime you come to the end of the road, honestly, you're not lacking money, you're not lacking mentorship, you're not lacking time, you're lacking an idea. That's all it is. You're just lacking an idea. I can't tell you how many times that I've worked with people who have come to that point and they've said, it's over. I know, I understand persist without exception, but I think this might be the case where, and I'll say, well, what have you done? What have you tried? They say, we've tried everything. Everything. We've exhausted every possibility. There is no thing that could be done that we haven't done. We just don't. And here's what I ask. This is a great little game you can play with yourself. Because you can do this. Because I'll say, well, let me ask you this. Now, I know that there's nothing else you could possibly do. You don't know where else to turn. That's right. That's right. We don't know. And I'll say this. I'll say, but if you did know, I know you don't, but pretend just for a minute you did know. If you did know what the next move you would make would be, if you did know, what would you do? And they'll say, well, if I did know, I'd probably blah, 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 blah. And I say, there you go. There you go. Do that. I mean, it's amazing how we think ourselves into a box. All we're looking for is an idea. It's stupid, I know, but it works. All we're looking for is an idea. That's all I was looking for when I wrote my first book. I came up with the idea that I would talk to people and write to people and ask them to give me their stories of personal rejection or personal bad times in their life. What's the worst time or worst rejection you had in your life before you became successful? And I thought, I'll talk to these people who everybody thinks that life is a bed of roses. I'll get letters from these people. I wanted to get the letters on the letterhead, in their own words, with their signatures at the bottom. This is what I wanted. And I thought, that's a great idea. And that is a great idea, don't you think? I just couldn't get anybody to do it. And I had the idea I wanted 52 people in the book. I had to get turned down by 400 before I got the 52 letters. And I thought, I got a book. I went to my agency. These are the biggest agencies in the world. They had their own literary department in London, in Berlin, in New York, in Los Angeles. They had a literary department. They already represented me. And they said, we don't see this. And I had people telling me, well, it's over. I said, it's not over. We're just looking for an idea. And of course, the idea was, you're going to have to publish your own book. Didn't have any money, so I mortgaged my house, my condo. I didn't have a house. I mortgaged my condo. And I got enough money to print the books. And they delivered 10,000 books to my condo. And the people at the condo said, you can't put them here. And I said, well, why? I'm putting them in my place. They said, they weigh tons. They'll crumble the condo. You can't put 10,000 books. I mean, these are pallets, forklifts, And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? But I got to move these books. And so basically, long story short, I started talking about the worst time in our life. What would happen? If you were encouraged by the worst time that other people had, if your worst time didn't seem so bad. I mean, I was doing comedy shows. And I was talking about these serious books. And so we started moving them. People started getting them back. And we ended up selling like 100,000 books. 100,000. Well, when I sold 100,000 books, I went back to the publishers then, and I said, hey, now, because, hey, 100,000 books. And they said, wow, whew, that is great. And obviously, we were wrong, but it's kind of done now. I mean, all the books have been sold. And so we were wrong, but holy cow, we certainly missed the boat on that. And when we had done 200,000 books, we went back and to all the publishers and we said, hey, 200,000, don't you think? And they said, whew, what are the odds on us being wrong twice like this? And they said, but we were wrong, and but now, 200, it really is done. And so we didn't even go back at 300 or 400 or 500. And at 600, we thought, maybe this is okay, because we didn't have a distributor, we didn't have a publisher, we didn't have a bookstore selling a single book. And it's bad that you don't have any help, but it's good that you keep all the money, $13 a book times 600,000, you do the math. I mean, it's okay. The book, The Traveler's Gift, this is an amazing story to me. And it's an amazing place to put it in a presentation with 7 decisions. I mean, to talk about the traveler's gift and persist without exception. See, there's a dirty little secret about this book that most people don't know. I mean, everybody knows about the book now. I mean, it's in like 18, 20 different languages, network television shows talking about it. And I felt like it was the best thing I had written. And I've got 51 of the biggest publishers in the world telling me, who's never had a book published, that what you have written is not worth putting on paper.
That's 51 of them telling me that. And at that point, wouldn't you think, well, it's kind of over? But my problem was I had written that stupid part about without exception. But a miracle occurred. I found a way where there was no way. I found something very important in my knowledge about the publishing industry. I found that there was someone more powerful than a publisher's wife. I'm telling you, I found myself one night sitting at the table with one of the honchos of one of the biggest publishing houses in the world. And his wife was right there. And I knew sometime during the night, somebody was going to be polite. I knew somebody was going to say, "So, Andy, what have you been doing?" And she did. And I said, "I've been working on a manuscript about a family going through a tough time, and the dad gets to travel through time, meeting with 7 historical figures who are going through a tough time of their own. He gets to sit down with Harry Truman while Truman's in Germany, how to end the war. He gets to be with Anne Frank in the Annex. He gets to be with Columbus across the ocean, and Solomon as he says, 'Bring me the sword and I'll tell you whose baby this is.' And every one of them gives a decision that when they take it, their lives will change forever." And she said, "Wow, I'd love to read that sometime." I said, "I got one in the car." And I found later that she and her husband stayed up all night. She stayed up all night reading the book, and he stayed up all night because she was going, "Hey, listen to this part, listen to this part." And a week later, we had a deal on the book. See, it's persisting without exception. It's an amazing thing. When you persist without exception, miracles occur. All right. Number three. This is the one that means more than any of the other 7. And this is the one that everybody thinks they know, and yet we don't pay attention to. Number 3, the last one. I am a person of action. See, without action, none of this stuff matters anyway. And I know, when I say that, people go, "Oh yeah, okay, action." Because we know, and don't we know? Hadn't we been told we've got to act? I mean, how many times have we been told, "You got to do something, whether it's right or wrong. It's better to do something than nothing. You got to act." And we kind of believe that. We kind of know that. But somehow, as a society, we've forgotten this. And it's obvious we've forgotten because as a society, the first thing we do when we get depressed, the first thing we do when we have a hard time is like lay down on the couch and turn the TV on and go, "Hit me," just like a deer in the headlights, "Hit me." It's like, could life be worse? Let me just sit here and just wait. Wait on what? So you got to do something to have something happen. If our encouragement and our opportunities and our knowledge and information come from people, most of them aren't sitting on my couch when I'm depressed. You got to get out and do something. It's like we have forgotten that. It's like we've forgotten that old Indian proverb: "Man who stand on mountain with mouth open, wait long time for roast turkey to fly in." Well, you got to do something. And the beautiful thing about actually doing something is that every time you do something, it changes things. Every single time you do something, it matters. Every time you take action or don't, it matters. And I can prove it. I really want to prove this more than anything else that we've talked about. I want you to know this. Because when we understand not only our value, but we understand the value of other people, and understand that nobody is more valuable than anybody else, because every single thing every one of us does matters for all of us and forever. When we understand that, things are different. And yet it's very apparent to some of us that some of us are more important than others of us. Some of us are not needed at all.
Some of us could do it all by themselves. I mean, I love talking to corporations about this because it is wonderful to take a CEO and prove to him that this isn't just the lady answering the phone over here. This is the director of first impressions for his entire company. You know, I mean, the CEO, you could go on vacation for 3 or 4 weeks and we might not even know you're gone. If she takes the afternoon off, we might close up. I mean, don't tell me that we aren't all important. So somewhere along the line, it is important to prove our worth. Did you know that there was one guy who made one move 140 years ago? There was one guy who made one move who has our nation operating like it operates within this world. He was a 34-year-old teacher. He was a professor of rhetoric. He was a professor of literature. And on July 3rd, 1863, he was placed 3/4 of the way up a hill and told, whatever you do, you can't leave here. On that particular morning, he wasn't working as a teacher. He was a colonel in the Union Army. Now, he wasn't a colonel because he knew any military strategy or battle tactics. He was a colonel because he was the first guy from his hometown to volunteer. I mean, really, that's really how it happened. He walked into the recruiting office and they said, thank God we have a colonel. Next 2 guys through the door are majors. I mean, this is basically how it went. And they told this guy, they said, whatever you do, you can't leave here. They said the enemy is going to try to breach our line through you, and if they come through you, they'll get behind us and they'll catch us on a downhill charge. And they'll wipe us all out. They said, if disaster strikes, it will have come through you. They told this man, they said, Joshua Chamberlain, you are the extreme left edge of this line of 80,000 men that runs from you all the way into that town over there called Gettysburg. Well, they spent the entire morning laying up a rock wall. It's amazing. I've been there. It's like 110 yards long with pie plate sized rocks stacked one on top of each other like thigh high over a gentle rise with a big stone right in the middle. And at 2:30 in the afternoon, they took the first charge from the 15th and 47th Alabama. And Chamberlain and his men of the 20th Maine pushed them back. The 15th and 47th Alabama charged again and again. And on the 4th charge, Chamberlain took a bullet dead center in the belt buckle. He fell over, rolled around, realized he wasn't hurt, got back up, kept fighting, and they pushed him back down the hill again. They'd started in Bangor, Maine 6 months earlier with 1,000 men. They'd started that morning with 300. Now they're down to 80 and out of ammunition. Chamberlain's brother, Tom, came over and said, we're leaving, right? And Chamberlain said, no, Tom, we're not going anywhere. Sergeant Tozier, the old battle sergeant, came over and said, sir, shall I sound the retreat? He said, no, Sergeant, we will not retreat. He said, sir, we're out of ammunition. Chamberlain said, have the men gather ammunition from the dead and the wounded. And the sergeant said, we did that last time. We're out. The 12-year-old lookout said, they're reforming. They're being reinforced. And up the hill, they came with that weird rebel yell. And they advanced behind trees and they fired and came behind the tree and reloaded and fired and just advancing up again the hill. And Chamberlain's brother said to him, he said, for God's sake, do something, say something, make a move, make a decision. And Chamberlain said, fix bayonets. They looked at him like he was crazy. And he yelled it. He said, fix bayonets. And up and down the line, you could hear the steel on the steel as these men put their knives on their empty weapons. And then Chamberlain turned to the sergeant and he said, Sergeant, have the men execute a great right wheel. Swing the left first. Do it now. Lieutenant Melcher, the flag bearer, had just walked up and he whispered to the sergeant, he said, what's a great right wheel? And the sergeant said, it's an all-out charge. This crazy man means to charge. Before anybody could argue with him, Chamberlain jumped up on the wall, swung his sword down the hill and said, charge, charge, get him. And they poured over the wall into a history most of the people in our country hadn't even heard. Because 80 men without ammunition, 80 men, captured over 400 of the enemy. Chamberlain laid his sword on the collarbone of an Alabama captain and said, "You, sir, are my prisoner." And the man turned around a fully loaded Navy Colt revolver and said, "Yes, sir, I am." Chamberlain passed one of the privates a few minutes later who was guarding 100 men by himself, 100 of the enemy. And the private said, "Sir, I have no ammunition in my weapon." And Chamberlain said, "Well, don't tell them." It's an amazing story, isn't it? Isn't it amazing and absolutely accurate? Just like I told you, that really happened just that way. But here's the amazing part. Historians say that had Chamberlain not charged that day and the South had won at Gettysburg, the South would have won the war. See, I always thought that if the South had won, we'd be the North and South. But historians say that had the South won, we would have a continent that looked more like Europe. And historians say, had Chamberlain not charged, we would be a continent of 9 to 13 countries, which means that when Hitler swept across Europe in the 1940s, there would not have existed a United States of America to stand in the breach. When Hirohito systematically invaded the islands of the South Pacific, there wouldn't have existed a united anything, much less a country big enough, powerful enough, strong enough, populous enough, and wealthy enough to fight and win 2 wars at the same time. The United States of America. It's an amazing thing that happened. And it's a country that exists today because of one guy and one move he made 140 years ago. Have you heard of the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect was a doctoral thesis written in the 1960s. 1963, actually, by Edward Lorenz. And the butterfly effect was laughed out of the New York Academy of Sciences because it was ridiculous. The butterfly effect, as Lorenz stated it, said that the butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the world and set molecules of air in motion that in turn moved other molecules of air that would then move other molecules of air that would eventually create a hurricane on the other side of the world. The butterfly effect. It was ridiculous, but it was interesting. And because it was interesting, it kind of hung around forever in urban legend and myth and stories until the mid-90s when physics professors proved the butterfly effect was accurate and viable and worked every single time. And not just with butterflies either. And not just with molecules of air. The butterfly effect worked with every form of moving matter, including people. The butterfly effect worked every time, and so they designated it, they gave it the status of a law. Just like the law of gravity, the butterfly effect is the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. And it works every time. See, Chamberlain is a human example of the butterfly effect. One guy who made one move 140 years ago, whose effects are still rippling through our lives today. I know things happen. I know that somebody is focused in on this right now who is going through the worst time in their life. If you're that person, here's what I want you to know. That if you're going through the worst time in your life, you can just take a breath and understand that it's normal. Because we're all either in a crisis, coming out of a crisis, or headed for a crisis. That's just part of being with us on this planet. It may feel horrible right now, but you are still here, which means if you're here, you haven't finished what you were put here to do. The greatest part of your life, your purpose, has yet to be lived. There is more fun to have. There's more success to experience. There's more laughter to enjoy, more children to teach, more friends to influence and help. And if what you were put here to do hasn't been done, you can't be harmed. There is a protection around you, just like there was around Chamberlain. When the bullet found its mark, but took his belt buckle. And he got proof, just like you'll see proof, that you, on your mission, as you move as you act, as everything you do matters, you will find that you will not and cannot be harmed. Chamberlain was elected governor in the state of Maine. He served 4 terms, and it was on the 3rd term that more proof came to him about the divine protection that was around him. The same protection that is around you, proving that he would not be harmed. This letter came to the State House, addressed to Governor Joshua Chamberlain from a member of the 15th Alabama. And this is exactly what it said. Dear sir, I want to tell you of a little passage in the Battle of Round Top Gettysburg concerning you and me, which I am now glad of. Twice in that fight, I had your life in my hands. I got a safe place between 2 rocks and drew bead fair and square on you. You were standing in the open behind the center of your line, full exposed. I knew your rank by your uniform and actions, and I thought it a mighty good thing to put you out of the way. I rested my gun on the rock and took steady aim. I started to pull the trigger, but some strange notion stopped me. Then I got ashamed of my weakness and went through the same motions again. I had you, perfectly certain. But that same strange something shut right down on me. I couldn't pull the trigger and gave it up. That is your life. I am glad of it now and hope you are. Yours truly, a member of the 15th Alabama. There will be protection around you as you act and move and become what you were meant to be, that you may never see, may never realize. But I can promise you this, there is no need to live the rest of your life, any part of your life, in fear. I was in a hotel room a couple of months ago, and I was ironing a shirt. And I had, the television was going down at the other end of the room, and I was kind of halfway listening, and I heard this guy. It was on one of the network news shows, and he was doing the person of the week thing, giving the person of the week, and I was barely out of the corner, and I heard him say, and so the person of the week, and he gave the date. The person of the week for is Norman Borlaug. And when he said that, I put the iron down, I ran in there, I couldn't believe it. My jaw was around my knees. Norman Borlaug, I couldn't believe it. They said, Norman Borlaug, person of the week, credited with saving the lives of over 2 billion people on our planet. I was blown away. I didn't know the guy was still alive. 91-year-old Norman Borlaug. I knew who he was. Norman Borlaug had hybridized corn and wheat for arid climates. He had won the Nobel Prize because he had created a situation where he had been able to plant a specific type of corn and wheat that had saved the lives of people in Africa and throughout Europe and the plains of Siberia and Central and South America. Been credited literally with saving 2 billion people on our planet. Norman Borlaug. And it really just kind of irritated me to see him get person of the week because I knew it wasn't Norman Borlaug that saved the 2 billion people. It was Henry Wallace. See, Henry Wallace was the Vice President of the United States under Roosevelt. I know a lot of people think, no, wait a minute, I thought Truman was Vice President. That's true. But the first Vice President Roosevelt ever had was a man named Henry Wallace, the former Secretary of Agriculture, who after that term was dumped off the ticket in favor of someone else. But while Henry Wallace was Vice President of the United States, he used the power of that office to create a station in Mexico whose sole purpose was to hybridize corn and wheat for arid climates. And he hired a young man named Norman Borlaug to run it. So Norman Borlaug got the Nobel Prize. And Norman Borlaug got the person of the week. But I'm thinking it was really Henry Wallace that saved the 2 billion people. Unless maybe it was George Washington Carver. Everybody knows Carver and knows about the peanut thing. and the sweet potato thing, but what they don't know is that when George Washington Carver was a student at Iowa State University, he had a dairy sciences professor who allowed his 6-year-old little boy to go on botanical expeditions on Saturday and Sunday afternoons. And George Washington Carver took this little 6-year-old boy and put a love for plants in him and a vision for what they could do for humanity. And it was George Washington Carver who took that little 6-year-old Henry Wallace and shaped him and pointed his life in a direction long before he ever became Vice President of the United States. So when you think about it, it is amazing, isn't it, that George Washington Carver flapped those butterfly wings over here and had that peanut thing going, flapped those butterfly wings over here and had that sweet potato thing going. He flapped his wings back here and had that victory garden idea that fed over half the Americans during the World War II. But while nobody was looking, he just flapped his wings a couple of times with a 6-year-old boy and just happened to save the lives of 2 billion people and counting. So I'm thinking, Carver for Person of the Week. Unless maybe it was the farmer from Diamond, Missouri, a man named Moses who had a wife named Susan. They lived in a slave state, but they didn't believe in slavery. Well, this was a problem for these psychopaths like Quantrill's raiders who would ride through and kill people and burn things. And one night on Moses and Susan's farm in early January, Quantrill's raiders rode through and they burned the barn and they shot some people and they grabbed some people, and one of the people that they took was a woman named Mary Washington who refused to let go of her infant baby George. Now Mary Washington was Susan's best friend, and Susan was distraught. And because his wife was so upset, Moses sent word out through neighbors and sent a query here and a question here. And after 10 days, had actually created a meeting, had set a meeting with an offshoot group of Quantrill's raiders. And he took a horse and he went 4 hours north to a crossroads in Kansas. And on a cold January night, right in the middle of the night, he met 4 of Quantrill's raiders who showed up with the burlap sacks tied over their heads with the holes cut out for their eyes. And Moses traded his only horse for what they threw him in a bag. And as he caught it and they thundered off on their horses, he got down on his knees and Moses took that bag apart and pulled out a little infant baby, cold, almost dead, and he put that baby inside his coat next to his skin and wrapped that baby around with his body, and he walked that baby out, talking to that child, promising that baby he would raise him as his own, and that he would educate him, and that he would, to honor his mother, who he knew was already dead, he would give the baby his name. And that is how Moses and Susan Carver came to raise that little baby, George Washington. So when you think about it, it was really the farmer from Diamond, Missouri that saved the 2 billion people. Unless maybe. And see, the point is we could do this all night. Because who knows, who really knows who it is who saved the 2 billion people? Who knows who it is whose move, whose action at a particular time changed the entire course of the planet? 2 billion people and counting. Who knows who it was? And who knows who it is in your life, in your future? Who knows who it is whose life will be changed by your actions tonight and tomorrow night and the next day? There are generations yet unborn whose existence depends on the choices you make and the action you take. Because everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take, not just for you, not just for your family, not just for your hometown, everything you do matters to all of us. Forever. I'm through. But I want to leave you with something. From me to you, I want to tell you something special. And because I don't know really what the future holds, I feel like I need to make sure that you know that I don't hope you do great things with your life. I don't hope you take these 7 decisions and change your world. And I'll tell you why. Because of my 2 little boys. Adam and Austin, 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, with their mama, with my wife. Those 2 little boys are the most precious things on this planet to me. I love those little monkeys. And I take these boys, and every night I smother them with kisses, and I spend a little time with each of them. Adam likes to count the stars. The 3-year-old, I'll take Adam out, and we'll go out and look. I say, count the stars, buddy, and I'll hold him, and Adam will say, star, 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 star. He'll look at me and say, moon. Yeah, that's the moon. Another moon, Daddy? No, buddy. 1 moon. A lot of stars, a lot of little boys. But there's 1 moon and 1 Adam. And I'll take Adam in, I'll put him in the bed, and he'll snuggle in, and there'll be Austin, and Austin will be, he'll get all straight. Polly will already put him in bed, he'll get straight because he knows what's coming next. And I'll say, you ready, buddy? He said, I am. And I'll go up to Austin, and I'll put my hand on his chest. And I'll say, buddy, it's time to check your heart. And I'll say, Aust, did you have a good day? And he'll say, I did. And I'll say, do you know how much Daddy loves you, Austin? He says, I do. I say, do you know how much God loves you? He says, yes, sir. And I say, Austin, is there anything you've done today that you feel like you need to ask forgiveness for? And he'll say, I don't think so. And I say, buddy, is there anybody you're mad at, anybody you're upset with, anybody you need to forgive before you go to sleep? And he'll say, no, sir. I say, Austin, are you proud of yourself? He'll say, I am. I say, do you know how proud of you Daddy is? He says, yes, sir. I said, we're going to have a good day tomorrow? He said, we are. I said, then close your eyes and go to sleep, buddy, because you got a great heart. I love these little boys. And that is why I would never, ever tell you that I hope you do great things with your life. I'm expecting it. Because everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take matters not just to you, not just to your family, not just to your friends or your hometown. Everything you do matters to me in Orange Beach, Alabama. Because every move you make, every action you take is creating the world in which my little boys grow up. I'm expecting great things from you. And frankly, you can expect the same thing from me. We're in this together. We should hold each other accountable. Because everything we do matters. And we will make a difference. But the question is, what kind of difference are we going to make? And you already know the answer. The answer is a great one. Thank you, guys. It's been a privilege to be here. Thank you very much.